Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia, and welcome to CPtsd TV and episode 1 for 2020. Welcome to the new year, and thank you everyone for your patience because I've been really unwell, and all your prayers and thoughts have been appreciated, and for all the bushfires that we've had in Australia this year too. All your prayers, everyone who's knitting, for all the animals, your donations, everything. Sincerely, thank you very much. Everything's needed, and we as a community in Australia value you and thank you for everything. So, for our first episode this year, I wanted to do two things today. I wanted to give you some insight into a whole bunch of books that I've got, and I've got more on order. But to give you insight into the direction that we're going this year and what you can expect to learn and grow, because we're here to be conscious and to grow, okay? So I want to do that first up, and then I want to be able to give you some information about being different and how that reflects in complex PTSD. And I'm going to give you a challenge that you can integrate into your day-to-day life. And this will be up in the Complex PTSD Academy free resources after we've done our live. So the first part of this morning is, I've shown you these two books before, but I didn't actually get around to reading them much or using them last year because we got really busy. So these two books, one's called The Emotionally Absent Mum, and that's a lot to do with abandonment, and this one's called The Emotionally Abusive Relationship. And both of these I'm going to give you some information from and some strategies as well, and they will be going into the Narcissistic Mum course in the Academy, okay, in the Conscious Warrior Academy later in the year. They won't be first up, but they will be going in so that you can do some work around that. I've also got a book called Restoring the Shattered Self. Now, this book, when we think about our abandonment trauma, okay, we have to develop a sense of self, all right? And so I wanted to add more information into the abandonment course. I know it's a 10-week course already, but I wanted to be able to give you some information live that you can integrate into your life. But I also wanted to add to the course so that you've got information that is practical and you can integrate it into your life every day, okay? With complex trauma, we need to have information and we need to be able to integrate it into our day-to-day life because we are all different. How the trauma's impacted us is different. All the externals are different for everybody. So what we do is, well, what I do is give you the information so that you can take it away and go, I can see that happening in my life. And then once we can see it, what's happening internally for us, we're able to change it up, okay? Now, this is a brand new release, okay? This book by Gary Thomas is called When to Walk Away, and it's Finding Freedom from Toxic People. I've already had a request this year for a video on recognizing safe people when we're ready to go into relationships, okay? So I will do a relationships course eventually, but what I will do is give you some information from this book, but give you what you need in order to recognize what areas of life you need to grow and what you need to, discard and what you can move forward into, okay? Because we don't want to always have to be thinking, oh, is that person toxic or not? We want to be able to be full and overflowing so that we can just let, no matter what the relationship is, we can let it progress and just unfold as it does as a natural thing, not have to be on alert, okay? So that's where we'll be going with that, is to expand it more and give you more information so that you can self-reflect on how it's happening in your life. And good morning, Ali and Diana. Great to see you girls. Great to have you back. Now, this next book, okay, it's was written some time ago, and John Bradshaw, most people in America know, well, a lot of America would know who John Bradshaw is, but a lot of the rest of the world may not know. Now, I read this book many years ago, but I bought it again because I want to share with you Birth Order. And he's the only person that I've come across that has birth order in a really easy to follow fashion. Okay, so at one stage we're going to do a live on birth order and what it means, and then what I'll do is give you the information in relation to complex trauma, because that information isn't available out in the wider context that I'm aware of. So that's why I rebought the book, because it was brilliant right at the beginning of my journey. Okay, now this is a massive book. Okay, this is so big and thick, and was not cheap, which doesn't matter, but it's just I wanted to get something that was really meaty for us, okay, something to chew on and something that's going to expand our internal journey, because as we do that, our external awareness expands as well. Now, this one is about coping with trauma-related dissociation, but what I want for us to do is to not just with dissociation, but be able to apply. It's a beautiful book with a lot of fantastic self-reflection questions in there as well. I want us to be able to apply it for where we're at in our day-to-day lives as well. And also, one of the things too is being able to recognize when dissociation happens, because when it's been happening since childhood, we have to actually build this awareness into our day-to-day life of when it's happening so that we can begin to turn it around. Okay, my favourite phrase, begin to turn it around. Now, all of you who've journeyed with me from last year will remember that I told you about this book called Jesus Calling, and it's a devotional book. Now, no matter what faith you are, it doesn't matter. You, in your faith, what you want to do is look at it from a spiritual perspective. So we want to have a spiritual journey that's ongoing and growing, okay? So if it's just like this at a level pace all the time, there's no growth, there's no life, there's no passion, there's no purpose. It just is what it is, okay? And that's okay if that's where you want to be. It just is what it is. No problem at all. But for me, and look at it this way too, before I get to the for me part, is scientists discovered the spiritual part of our brain, okay? So it's up to us whether we want to engage that. So I talk about the brain and us all having different apps. And if we want to turn that app on and get full use of it, then we need to have a spiritual part of our life that resonates for us, and we are all at different places in our journey. Now, what I found was this lady, now the reason why I like this book is because the lady herself has been through really, really challenging times with her health, and all her writing really hits you deep in the heart. So the first one was called Enjoying Peace in His Presence. But when I went to the shop this year, I actually went, peace isn't what I'm about this year. And then I found this one. It says Embracing Joy in His Presence. So this one's called Jesus Always. And so what I'm doing is each morning and each night I reflect on what the passage means for me. So I just sit down and I'm asking myself, where does this reflect for me internally? Is it showing me somewhere where I want to go externally? And I got this one this year because I want this year to be filled with a lot of joy, okay? Not just about peace, but with about joy that says I'm moving forward, I'm embracing change, and I'm going to work with it, okay? All right, so that's just some of what we'll be going through this year, looking into, examining, learning about, and also shame. I've bought a course on shame, a professional course on shame, and then I'm going to teach it in the manner that I do. So hopefully this year we'll have a course on shame up in the Conscious Warriors Academy too. Okay, so for the second part of this morning, I want to talk to you about difference, because I had a really big experience around difference. Let me just grab the slide, and I want to see if the slide will come on so that you can see it too. Okay, now I don't think it's, you know what, sometimes I can get it to work. Here we go. Okay, now if I can just get me back on there, would be fine. Okay, so it's not going to let me go. 1 minute it lets me on there, next minute it doesn't. Okay, this is what we're going to do. I'll just teach you off the slide because it's just easier. Okay, so I want to talk to you this morning about difference, and as I talk to you, I want you to sit there and see what it means for you. So as children, when we were growing up, we'd look outside of ourselves and ask questions around, am I safe? So if adults were coming towards us, even if it's an unconscious response, we were looking and we were assessing the situation and asking, am I safe? Okay. And when we went into different scenarios, so for me, my family was all split up at a young age, and I'd go into different scenarios, and I was aware that I'd get migraines if things happened out of order, out of a perceived order for me, or, oh, look, meeting new people. This is at a really young age. And we can have those bodily pains happening because of the stress, okay? And as we grew into adulthood and we leave home, it can feel like a breath of fresh air. Oh, great. I don't have to be conscious all the time of, am I safe? What are these people like? I'm not having to make these conscious assessments all the time. But then we go into having a group of people around us. But eventually we come to understand that no matter how much we wear a mask to fit in externally, internally, we still feel different. So, and until recently, we've had no language around why it was we felt different, what was happening internally for us, and a lot of it's driven from the neurological level, neurobiological level as well. So if we're looking at how we were different, so I want you to sort of sit down and make a list of how you felt different in the different contexts of your life. So for me, it was, I'm emotional, I feel things. In our family, our rules were, emotions just weren't registered at all. Don't talk about them. I thought about life differently than my family did, and I had a different sense of humour to my family. I was okay reading and doing my own thing, but I could never put my finger on why I felt different. Now, complex trauma with the abandonment wound, our lack of social skills, so our lack of a development of our sense of self, and our sense of self is an app in the brain, okay? It's part of our brain that we need to develop that sense of self. It's our sense of self actually connects our prefrontal cortex, so the executive functioning in our brain, to the emotional part as well. All right, so we need to have that sense of self. And if we don't, we have a lack of input from having our prefrontal cortex working more often than not. Okay, so if our prefrontal let me rephrase that. If our prefrontal cortex was engaged, our executive functioning was engaged, then we wouldn't have walked around feeling like there's this massive gap between me and other people as an adult, okay? Now, hi Chan says, that's what I'm working on, is my sense of self. So far it's been so hard. It is, absolutely, it is hard, because it's something that as children in healthy families, you develop that sense of self, that confidence, you develop the ability to ask questions, to be curious. Okay, so one of the things that is not naturally there when we grow into adulthood from having experienced complex trauma in our childhood is our sense of self and curiosity. Curiosity is not something that was encouraged for us. There's usually a whole lot of family rules around curiosity or asking questions, or I was just trying to think of some of the old sayings of things like just do as you're told, you know. So you weren't allowed to question anything, so it was just do as you're told. Do as I say, not as I do. That type of thing. So think about rules around, what were you told as a child that stopped you from communicating or developing a sense of curiosity. And it's something that we need to develop as adults, is a sense of curiosity. Otherwise, we never step out into the world, If we're not curious about what's happening in other cultures or not just cultures, but for other people around the world, then we don't come together as a people and work together, okay? So even the most recent example of the bushfires in Australia, the whole world's come together to help us out, out of curiosity, out of caring, out of concern, compassion. And it's just the most amazing thing, because Australians do that too. Our sense of mateship, okay, is world renowned. So what are we going to do? Chan says her family was be seen but not heard, and this doesn't concern you. Oh, yeah. Yes, I had a lot of non-verbals like that. So remember, often communication in families too can be non-verbal. It can be a look. Don't you dare ask that question. Don't go there. So sit down and ask those questions, all right? So build that awareness into you. Now, building that awareness into you isn't, an open license for us to go down a trip down memory lane. We don't want to do that. We want to bring ourselves into the now, all right? And another way you can look at it is become aware as you walk through today where in your life you feel different to those around you. All right, so we've got to begin to reconcile the internal and the external. So yeah, that's right, Chance, that glare. How dare you ask that question in front of everybody else? I remember one of those. All right, so I've got 3 questions for self-reflection for you, okay? Question 1, do I feel different because I'm wearing my mask? Okay, got to be real and raw, remember? Am I trying to keep myself safe? Now, in order to answer that question, you're going to have to feel how you're feeling, all right? And that's a good thing. It's not about taking us back. It's about bringing our awareness into the now. Does this situation feel unmanageable? Okay, so we need to build this awareness in order that we can develop a place in our heart where we can acknowledge that individually we are all different, and we can feel safe with being different in our hearts and our minds. So we want that congruence happening. We want it all to line up with inside of us. So when we feel safe in our hearts and our mind to acknowledge others' differences and sameness, we step into a deeper layer of strength for ourselves. We focus forward, and we can be both gentle and strong all at the same time. Okay? So this is what our theme for this year is gentle and strong. We want to be able to be aware that in gentleness there is strength too. All right? And I'm going to put those 2 slides up in the Conscious Warrior Academy. I will put the link to it. It's for all the free resources. So this will be going under your free resources. So the questions are there. and the video will be there shortly. And just do some self-reflection throughout your day-to-day life. With complex PTSD, progress is made as we integrate the awareness into our day-to-day life so that we can change things up, so that we have the courage to say, yep, that's not part of me, that's not part of who I am, this is where I want to go with this. Okay? Now, as said, I'll put the link down below, and thanks for joining in this morning, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow morning. Okay, bye for now.